There comes a time where you see a tabletop game and it sticks in the back of your head. For me, tabletop RPGs can wrap me up in their respective mechanics, art, and writing that are deeply nourishing because of not only the content, but because of the people that it comes from and the cultural context with it. A game that captures that depth of human experience, especially amongst Black creators, that I recently found was Griot Anthology. So, in this video, I'll be discussing Griot Anthology. We'll go over the games in some details, we'll discuss their settings, themes, and some of their mechanics, but we won't dive too deep into any specific one. Ultimately, I want to show each of these respective games explore specific perspectives on the Black diaspora. So, without further ado, join me as we discuss the wondrous worlds throughout Griot Anthology. Griot Anthology was released last year on January 20, 2025. The anthology was published by Thought Crime Games, which is an indie publishing team of 4. The founder and lead game designer is Quinn Murphy, with Jerry B. Morgan being an editor, Andy Hogg and Ryvan Sedril being the other game designers for Thought Crime. Griot Anthology is a collection of 7 games made by Black tabletop RPG game designers. Each game explores a different genre, theme, and uses different mechanics to explore a specific aspect in the retrospective game. To illustrate this, I will go through each of the games briefly. Most of these games I have not played, but will touch on the mechanics to the best of my ability, especially the solo game that we'll be talking about later. Without further ado, let's get started. Black Future by Quinn Murphy. Black Future is where you take on navigators whose goal is to advance the mission. The mission is to be free and free others from the corrupting influence and power of the Ash. This is a sci-fi game about playing free people, aka Black folk who have earned their freedom after the burning of the Earth, and making the galaxy a better place for everyone. The game uses the Caltrep core system as made for 3 to 5 players. The main material you'll need is several D4s, as well as a facilitator who's called the Ancestral Wisdom, which, by the way, is a great name for facilitator or game master. To play, you will need to create the intergalactic society you all live in. To do so, you all create marvels based off your D4 rolls. These are notable achievements, technologies, or advancements you have achieved. And as you can see, overarching theme of this game calls back to Afrofuturism. Afrofuturism compromises cultural production and scholarly thought, literature, visual arts, photography, film, multimedia art, performance art, music, and theory that imagines greater justice in a freer expression of Black subjectivity in the future or in an alternative place, time, or reality. It also offers speculation about a world wherein Black people are normative. Afrofuturism can also imagine dystopic worlds to come, with contemporary injustice projected into and often intensified in the future. So we can see that Afrofuturism is done through largely its world building, play interactions, and between the conversations that the Ancestral Wisdom and the Voyagers have between each other, and what those journeys cause. For instance, the role of the AW is actively disconnected from, say, typical artificial intelligence we may see in science fiction media. AW would tell you what you need to hear, whereas an AI tells you what you want to know. And as some of us may be familiar, AI models are 50% more sycophantic than humans, and while some models might have less people-pleasing tendencies due to training, this is still worrying, especially in fields like medicine. The AW in this fictional world speaks through art, poems, stories, or questions. The AW is not some agreeable technology meant to get you the answer you want, but rather it supports and advises conversation that is actively powered by the accomplishments of generations of free people. It's the books, literature, poems, art, and music that makes the AW who they are and thus inform your characters' experiences and actions. There is this sense of hope in the Starlight that I think transcends much of Black Future. It's that unrelenting hope and fight for liberation. While some might read as corny, I read as heartfelt, given the game shows it through its many tables, encounters, and how your characters hope to give others the freedom they deserve. Black Future is emblematic of what's to come in the many other games. It sets the tone of celebrating Blackness through its specific genre and mechanics. Black Future is about what we see for ourselves in the future. For me, making your way through an unknown world that is scary, that is tough, and that is harrowing is a common experience for all people across the Black Diaspora. Black Future, rather, states that you have the support of generations of people who have paved the way towards a freer world. I think to start off with such a bold and fun decision, especially with its colorization of gold and blue, really sets the tone for the endless possibilities you will get to see in this anthology. Come Out From Your Grave by Basil, Wright. Come Out From Your Grave is the second game in the anthology, and it's a bit on the opposite end of, say, sci-fi futurism. Come Out From Your Game is a game about reviving the dead. You play as either the revivalist or the spirits. Revivalists have gathered to revive the dead. Each of your answers to 2 questions from the selection shown help to inform what your revivalist is doing and why they're doing what they're doing. The spirit answers 1 question as shown. The goal of the game is to raise your spirit to eventually bring them back alive. My favorite aspect is the dynamic between the revivalist and the spirit, which is the focus of the game. Revivalists have a reason for raising the dead. This could be maybe a family member. This could be for clout, for fun, for love, or for even revenge. And you can see that there's a relationship between the revivalist and the spirit. And that the act of resurrection, the act of pulling up the past, has some sacrifices and you gain something from this. The spirit, as I said earlier, also has its own share of baggage. The spirit may have been revived multiple times or has a secret bind against the revivalist. All of these questions play a darker, sadder aspect on a game about trying to bring back the dead. As for mechanics, it uses one of the most unique mechanics I have seen in an RPG ever. It uses the Mugen style of dominoes. And I'm gonna be 100%, I've never played dominoes or Mugens, but I find the general concept super collaborative on paper. One of you is trying to reach a score of 99. The spirit, when they notice a revival is going to place a domino that will result in a score, they call them Mugens, or Muggins. I'm not quite sure what pronunciation is, so apologies in advance. This allows them to have a supernatural effect. Revivalists react accordingly to this spooky reaction. I would need to see this game in action to get a grasp of how to play, since this is entirely outside of my depth. That said, I can see the genius, and honestly, it's just a really cool concept alone. The idea of building up to 99 is something that makes sense, and I feel like resonates with a game about, well, building a relationship between you and someone that has passed. As players get a higher score or fail more of the resurrection fail or succeeds. It leads to harrowing encounters as they try to revive someone they love or need. It really is on paper an engaging loop and quite horrifying and exciting. And what's not more horrifying, exciting, and maybe sad than to revive your long lost ancestors due to spite or due to love or due to some sort of relationship with them. Intergalactic Teaz by Jellighoul Studios RPG. Let's move away from the drab dead of Come Out From Your Grave and move to a more bubbly and star-shining battle, Intergalactic Teaz. Intergalactic Teaz was made by Brianna Allen and Blue Smith from Jellighoul Studios, and this game oozes with queerish style. Setting-wise, it takes place on Planet X. Planet X is a corporate-like structure where isolation and independence are important structures to the society. People are wed out of assets or financial reasons rather than love. Navaar came across this planet and has found love, but in order to be wed, you and your crew must face off against the house their mother's love is in. Your goal is to battle out on the ballroom stage for love, care, and loads of funky and kick-ass sauce. Will you succeed and tear up the stage, or will you be ousted as posers in your ultimate goal to win over those on House X? I honestly cannot tell you what will happen at your table, but I can say that the premise alone, just based off of the first page and settings, is absolutely full of aura. As you can see from the description and the graphic design of the pages shown, this game pulls directly from ballroom culture and queer culture. Whether you're creating your baddie or ballroom battling, this game oozes style with its use of stars, hearts, other cutesy shapes to show you how this game is full of expression and heart. For example, the cast of characters each have their own unique symbols that define who they are, especially on House Royalty, which, by the way, great freaking name. Mother, or Mother if you're nasty, has 3 stars, while Joan Rivers on the other page for House X, separated by X and barcode, notice that, has these glasses with electricity symbols. These are small details, but give a lot of personality without needing more than a few sentences for each character, excluding the obvious lovely Mother. The mechanic and gameplay loop also reinforces how ballroom culture, and for that matter, Black, queer, and transgender history and culture deeply influence the game. The game uses a lot of Ebonics and AAV that share Black, queer, trans history. I mean, just look at how they pronounce Mother's name, or Baddie, which appears in character creation, or stats like Slay, Body, or Serve. I know, just saying it out loud in the context of a YouTube video essay sounds a little strange. It's a little weird for me. But if you're Black, you get it. Trust me, you get it. Anyway, use of all of these cultural touchstones really makes this to be a fun and zany experience. This even includes other character aspects, such as the character-defining things such as fashion or sex design, to name a few. These categories, mechanics, and language all add to the vibe and feeling of celebrating queer and trans Black culture and history and ballroom culture, alongside having its own personal identity of being this sort of sci-fi queer rom-com of sorts. All these mechanics and settings compile to be a story about characters connecting and coming together in a world that wants to squash expression. The way you play and even how you lash out is about being authentic and true, even when it's messy or upsetting. Intergalactic Teaz manages to paint queer and trans existence not as some pristine, high-in-the-sky, foreign concept of coexistence, but as people, each with their own respective issues, struggling. This is not a game about queer and trans Black folk who have it all figured out, but of people that existed and do exist now. As the game encourages early on, if you're not serving content, you're playing the game wrong. This is not a game where you limit yourself with your PCs. There is no such thing as being too much. There's no such thing as retaining the status quo. Your story should be like no other, because no one can ever be like you or your characters. Get to serving. I better not be eating off an empty plate. It does so elegantly through its stages of play, its stats, the follow-up mechanic, and how no matter what, you'll shine bright for those on the dance floor and hopefully get 10s across the board. Midnight Train Ticket by Laura Simpson. The next game is Midnight Train Ticket, which is a 3 to 6 player game. It's set in the 1960s in a train station in the South and tells the story of Abel Cummings and Shirley Moorer. The players move between the present timeline and 48 hours prior to when they got to the train station, and discusses whether these two characters stay in Summerville, South Carolina, or get on the train. The train will leave at 12 a.m., and you have to navigate that emotional experience of what brought you here, and whether Abel and or Shirley leave Summerville behind. The game has one of the shortest play times in the rest of the anthology. The RPG comes out to 30 minutes of play time, excluding Session 0 prep. Each of the 5 parts of the game move in real time. This means each scene has a specific time in which it occurs. Examples include the opening scene, who you are, being 10 minutes, and why you are, also being 10 minutes. The time element really pushes you and your fellow players to come up with info on the fly. Similarly, the main characters Shirley and Abel are leaving for something new and have to make a rushed decision. To implement time segment gets the players quickly in the game and sets the mood immediately, beyond just the 1960s setting and art, as we've seen. I really think that Midnight Train Ticket can explore many aspects of the Black experience, especially given this is a very clear historical setting, without any explicit fantastical or scientific elements the many other games have. The time period allows you to explicitly explore some of the race dynamics of the Jim Crow, given the text directly mentions segregation. This could also be a story of running away from responsibility, love, revenge, or whatever the group decides. Regardless of the choice, I think a story about Black folk leaving somewhere, whether by choice or force, is a tale as old as 1619. I think the setting allows you to place the story and narrative back in your hands about what led you to decision and how this will play out, given the short journey. Minds by Tyrone Reid. In mind, you play a supernatural entity inhabiting the Virgin Islands. You embody amalgams of Afro-Caribbean folklore and culture and spirituality, and you must protect your community from the colonizers that are attempting to settle your home. Material-wise, you'll need several d6s and 3 to 5 players. The entity creation is a community experience. The entities can be selected from a batch or rolled, with you all rolling to determine the relationship the entity has with the community. All of these roles and backgrounds lays the groundwork and establishes a bond between your entities and the community that you protect together. I think the use of pillars also lets you visualize how you fight the colonizers within your game. The pillars are umbrella categories that focus on several aspects for the locals and serve to categorize attacks that colonizers will make on the local resistance. I think my favorite aspect is how both the ways locals and entity protect their homes is emotionally tied and cathartic. There is potential for big losses, given you only succeed on a 5-6 as local resistance. That means there's a lot of potential for phases to turn out in all sorts of ways. Maybe the colonizers try to sabotage your crops in phase 1, but fail due to the workings of a shapeshifter and local resistances in phase 2. There is a wide diversity and variety of situations stacked into this game, while also providing a lot of variability for players to kick some colonizer ass and also potentially fail. Also, I love how this game is deeply tied to Afro-Caribbean culture and the long history of resistance that occurs across the Caribbeans. The game is another clear example of the Black Diaspora, and specifically Afro-Caribbean history in a cathartic and celebratory experience. You get to kick ass, have superpowers, and celebrate Afro-Caribbean culture. What more can any person have and or want? Neighborhood Robots by Navaar Jackson. Neighborhood Robots is a solo journaling game about community care, protection, and rebellion. It is about building robots that can change the course of history, not in one singular event, but throughout a long period of history with the ultimate goal of creating a better tomorrow. The game begins by explicitly stating, the government has failed us. The government began a war of alien allies from the planet Perot. In the process, the world powers neglected you and your community. So it's up to you and your community to build your way out of this problem and fight a fascist regime for your brilliant engineering skills, one mech at a time. The game uses a standard card deck as its resolution mechanic, and is inspired by the solitaire card game Clear the Dungeon by Mark S. Bell. You separate the deck into 2 piles, face down one with face cards, and the other with the remaining number cards. Shuffle these piles, and when you're ready, you begin by drawing the top 4 cards off the face pile and place them in order from left to right. The first card represents the source of the threat. The second, third, and fourth represent how the threat harms the community. Each of the 3 card types portray specific resources and has a specific numeric value. Neighborhood Robots focuses on revolution, not as some immediate action, but something that you build towards for a long period of time. You journal the many mechs you create, your failures, the fights you win, and your eventual and inevitable victory over fascism as you retire your final robot. It is that endearing hope that Neighborhood Robots resonates within me that you would appreciate as well. It's also the only solo game in the series of anthologies, or anthology. So I'd recommend checking it out since you can play this without needing any other players. Reich by Shan. The final game is Reich, and in this game, you play superpowered soldiers who've been selected by President Roosevelt himself to strike deep into the heart of the Reich. The fascists in our timeline, much like our own, have not been sitting around, but rather stealing tomes from across Europe. Maybe less so stealing tomes across Europe. Their powers grow, but do not worry. You aren't any ordinary soldier. You are codebreakers, assassins, engineers, and vanguards of America's strength who are made to stomp out fascism and, as the book states, give it absolutely no quarter. Breakbreakers is a game for 3 to 5 players. One is the game master, the other play soldiers who are sent on missions during World War II to acquire their superpower talents to defeat the enemy. The game recommends 3 to 8 of the following dice: D4s, D6s, D8s. Each dice represents how strong you are when rolling for something. The lowest is D4, aka your broken dice. Use a D4 when you're at a disadvantage. The strongest is a D10, which represents superhuman abilities and can only be used when activating powers. You roll a pool of dice with their being a range of failure and success going from the D4 all the way to the D10. Play revolves around the loop of describing your approach, then rolling for a setback, action, and resisting said rolls. The game makes it very clear what it is. It reiterates that this is a story about being a badass while fighting fascists and defending the American ideal of equality. This is not a story about how you lost to the Reich. You may get beaten up, you may get broken, and you will get set back. Without a single doubt, you will break these fascists no matter how many times it takes. It's pure power fantasy, and it is pure, just pulpy good fiction. And Reich Breakers by Shan is an example of what you do when you put being a badass with, say, pulpy fiction and superhero movies. It's really just like a just pure case of just raw awesomeness. When I bought Griot Anthology back last year from PAX Unplugged, I felt this really deep excitement. I got hooked by the premise of Intergalatic Teaz at the Indie Game Showcase. It was not only novel in concept, but it had this amazing art and stylish color and design. However, I didn't take much look at the other games. But as I'm looking back now, I am sad I didn't. Now that I studied each game a little bit more, I quickly realized that what I had was something truly special. Griot Anthology was probably the first RPG collection I personally owned that was developed by a full cast of Black game designers. Each game explores a different avenue, culture, aspect of the Black diaspora. And the game that starts the anthology holds true to every other game. We see aspects of living and loving in all of these games. We see power fantasy, pulp, horror, romantic comedy, mechs, historical fiction, fantasy, superheroes, drama, and the themes and ideas that they explore are deeply resonating, not just for me as a Black queer person, but for everyone who's been involved in the game or anyone who's come across it. It's not because of their celebration of what it means to be Black, but because the games can be a safe space and a way to engage conversations and dialogues on the Black diaspora experience. That said, seeing a project with its beautiful art, design, and unique games, imagining so many various realities is a reminder of why I love tabletop games and what can be created for your table. It's for that reason I highly recommend you explore the endless Black futures, pasts, and presents that exist in Griot Anthology by Thought Crime Games. So, the link to it will be down below in the description box where their itch.io page will be. I'll also have a separate link to all the creators that were featured on this video as well, to the best of my ability. Next, a special shout out to my Patreon supporters, Harrison Parker and Logan, for your continued support. You too can support me with a monthly donation of your choice from $6 all the way to $20 over at my Patreon, or you could check out my Ko-fi for a one-time donation if you are feeling able to and can. Otherwise, feel free to like and subscribe, and don't forget to hit that bell button if that still exists on YouTube. Otherwise, I'm your average everyday queer host and nerd, Blurry Disposition. Hope you all have a wicked day. Ciao!